In DeKalb County, authorities say Raesha Heard was shot in her driveway while unloading groceries, the act carried out in full view of her child. Weeks later in Peoria, a different scene unfolded when 35-year-old Zaneta Shar'dé Winters was fatally shot inside her home, and 20-year-old neighbor Jakaiden Rynearson was struck after stepping in to help. Investigators in both cases focus on suspects linked closely to the victims, raising questions about motive and intent. Two women and a neighbor lost their lives in separate incidents that left families searching for answers. Stay with us as we unravel these cases. On October 11, 2023, in DeKalb County, Georgia, 31-year-old Raesha Heard arrived at her parents' home on Kelly Chapel Road. She parked in the driveway and began unloading groceries from her vehicle. Her 8-year-old son was nearby. As she carried items inside, gunfire erupted. Multiple shots struck Raesha, and she collapsed near her car while her child witnessed the incident. Emergency calls were made immediately. Police and paramedics responded to the scene. Heard was pronounced dead in the driveway.
The young mother of two boys, who's described as the life of the party, was gunned down, DeKalb police say, in her parents' driveway. Family members say Raesha was getting groceries out of the trunk when someone ambushed her from the side of the family's home on Kelly Chapel Road. They shot her multiple times. Her youngest son, just 8 years old, watched it all.
Words couldn't explain how bad it hurt. For them to have to have witness that it's unexplainable. It's so hard.
Both the family and Rashida's friends say they know who shot her.
The area was secured, and investigators began gathering evidence and witness statements. Attention quickly turned to her ex-boyfriend, 34-year-old Justin Renee Lewis, also known as rapper Mad Musically. He was identified as the primary suspect in the killing. 7 days later, on October 18, 2023, Lewis was located and arrested in Forest Park, Georgia. He was booked into DeKalb County Jail and charged with malice murder. A judge denied him bond, and he has remained in custody awaiting trial. The legal proceedings are expected to address the motive behind the killing, the events leading up to it, and testimony from key witnesses. This crime did not occur in isolation. In August 2022, Heard's 15-year-old nephew, Romello Heard, was fatally shot, marking the second homicide in the family within a 14-month span. The case of Raesha Heard also highlights broader issues of domestic violence and its impact on women, particularly during pregnancy. Reports confirm she was 2 months pregnant at the time of her death. The unanswered questions remain. What specifically triggered the shooting that night? Whether the attack was premeditated, if earlier intervention could have prevented the outcome, and what role social media activity may have played in the investigation. Stay with us as we unravel the shocking story and uncover the heartbreaking details of what led to this senseless loss. Before we begin, let us know in the comments, where are you watching from, and what are your thoughts as the story unfolds? Welcome to True Crime Tales, where we reveal the crimes that shock communities and the secrets hidden behind closed doors. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's begin. Raesha Heard was a 31-year-old resident of DeKalb County, Georgia. At the time of her death, she was a mother of 2 children. Reports indicated that she was approximately 2 months pregnant, which meant she was carrying a 3rd child when her life was taken. Her identity was central to the case because she was not only a young woman whose life was cut short, but also a mother whose children would now be left without her presence. Her role as a parent was consistently highlighted by both family members and investigators as they pieced together the circumstances leading to her death. Those who knew Raesha described her as outgoing and socially active. She was often referred to as the life of the party, a phrase commonly used by her friends to indicate her personality in social settings. Multiple accounts from acquaintances emphasized that she was kind, approachable, and carried a consistent smile, which left an impression on the people around her. Raesha also maintained close ties with her family. She frequently spent time at her parents' home, which later became the site of her murder. Being around family was part of her regular routine, and her choice to be near her loved ones showed the importance she placed on maintaining those bonds. The fact that she was killed at her parents' residence added to the weight of the investigation, as it demonstrated how violence reached her even in a location considered safe. The Heard family had already endured a previous tragedy before Raesha's death. In July 2022, her 15-year-old nephew, Raesha Heard, was fatally shot during a robbery. This loss devastated the family, and only 14 months later, another violent act would claim Raesha's life. Her murder marked the second time within just over a year that her family would lose a loved one to gun violence. The back-to-back nature of these events raised concern not only within the family, but also within the community, as it highlighted the ongoing threat of violence in their area. The Heard family's history became a key part of the narrative surrounding Raesha's killing, showing how multiple lives in one household were impacted by homicide in such a short span of time. The man identified as a suspect in Raesha's killing was Justin Rene Lewis. Professionally, he went by the stage name Mad Music Cali. He was a rapper originally from New Orleans who had moved around in pursuit of his music career. Authorities confirmed his identity during their investigation, and his background quickly became a point of focus as police worked to determine how his history and his relationship with Raesha intersected with the murder. Lewis was Raesha's ex-boyfriend. Reports indicated that he was also the father of her children, making their relationship not only romantic in the past, but also one that involved shared responsibilities as parents. The relationship between Raesha and Lewis was described as troubled. Accounts from her family suggested there were domestic issues while they were together. These reports pointed to an environment of tension that may have contributed to their eventual separation. After the relationship ended, Lewis allegedly continued to harass Raesha. Family members noted that she had attempted to create distance between herself and Lewis in order to protect herself and her children. This included avoiding him and remaining close to her family for safety. Despite her attempts, the harassment appeared to continue. This was later considered significant in understanding how the situation escalated to the fatal encounter in October 2023. Following Raesha's murder, Lewis displayed behavior that drew attention during the investigation. Reports indicated that he went live on social media after the killing. During this appearance, he gave the impression of taunting Raesha's family rather than showing remorse. This behavior became a disturbing part of the case narrative. It showed not only the crime itself, but also how the suspect allegedly chose to act afterward, leaving family members and investigators with an even deeper concern about his state of mind. On the evening of October 11th, 2023, Raesha arrived at her parents' home in DeKalb County after grocery shopping. This was a routine activity that became the backdrop for crime. She parked her car in the driveway of her parents' residence on Kelly Chapel Road. As she began unloading groceries from her vehicle, an assailant approached. Witness accounts and police investigations confirmed that this was the moment the attack occurred. The suspect, later identified as Justin Rene Lewis, confronted Raesha at the driveway. Without warning, he fired multiple shots at her. In total, 7 bullets struck her. 2 shots to the back, 1 shot to the chest, 1 shot to the head, 1 shot to the leg. The remaining bullets also contributed to her fatal injuries. What made this attack particularly notable was that Raesha's young son, only 8 years old, was present at the scene and witnessed the entire incident. His testimony would later provide critical insight into the sequence of events. The sound of gunfire immediately drew the attention of neighbors and family members who were nearby. Multiple individuals rushed to the scene in response to the shots. Emergency calls were placed to 911 within moments of the shooting. Authorities arrived quickly at the home. Their first task was to secure the area to prevent further danger and to assess the situation. They confirmed Raesha had sustained multiple gunshot wounds and was unresponsive. Paramedics assessed her condition, but determined she had succumbed to her injuries. She was declared dead at the scene. The crime scene was then processed by investigators. Witness statements, including those of family members and her young son, were taken to aid in piecing together the timeline. The investigation from this point onward centered on locating and apprehending Lewis, who had fled after the shooting. The investigation into the killing of 31-year-old Raesha Heard began immediately after law enforcement officers arrived at the scene on October 11, 2023. Responding units from the DeKalb County Police Department secured the driveway of the Kelly Chapel Road residence where the incident occurred. Their first task was to confirm the identity of the victim. Officers verified that the deceased woman was Raesha Heard, a resident of the area and a mother of 2 children.
A DeKalb County family still reeling after someone shot and killed a young mother in the family driveway. It happened on Kelly Chapel Road. Raesha Heard's family tells Fox 5 her 8-year-old son watched it happen.
Fox 5's Angelique Proctor joins us live from DeKalb County tonight. Angelique, Heard's family spoke to you. Why did they say they're so frustrated with the process?
Well, good evening to you both. Family members and friends say they are frustrated because there has been no arrest, and they say they know exactly who did the shooting. And even more upsetting, they claim the shooter has been on social media many days since the murder.
And I just feel like I just want justice for her.
Justice that Raesha Heard's best friends say is coming too slowly. The young mother of 2 boys, who's described as the life of the party, was gunned down, DeKalb police say, in her parents' driveway. Family members say Raesha was getting groceries out of the trunk when someone ambushed her from the side of the family's home on Kelly Chapel Road. They shot her multiple times. Her youngest son, just 8 years old, watched it all.
Words couldn't explain how bad it hurt. For them to have witness that is unexplainable. It's so hard.
Both the family and Rashida's friends say they know who shot her. Keep in mind, several of the family members were at the house when the deadly shooting occurred. DeKalb police say they have identified a suspect, but they are not yet ready to release his name.
He's doing a lot on his Instagram. He's taunting us. He's taunting the family. Yeah, he wants to go viral from this. So, yes, we know who it is.
Meanwhile, Raesha's besties, who have known her since 9th grade, say they will miss so much about her.
Her smile. She always had a smile, a big smile. She touched a lot of people's lives. She had a lot of friends, and she was just so loving and caring. She's a loving and caring person. She's the life of the party. We're going to have a positive, never negative.
And these friends say they do plan to reach out to DeKalb police to talk with them about this new information about this person being on social media. We are live in DeKalb County. Angelique Proctor, Fox 5 News.
All right, Angelique, thanks.
The case quickly took on a sensitive dimension because one of the key witnesses was Raesha's 8-year-old son. He was present at the time of the shooting and provided investigators with an account of what he had seen. His statement confirmed that the gunman approached while his mother was unloading groceries and fired multiple rounds. This eyewitness account was crucial because it not only corroborated the physical evidence on the scene, but also pointed investigators toward a suspect with whom the family was already familiar. Detectives began building their case based on this information and interviews with family members. It became clear early on that suspicion centered on Raesha's ex-boyfriend, identified as 36-year-old Justin Rene Lewis, known publicly by a stage name Mad Music Cali. The history of their relationship, marked by allegations of conflict and separation, made him a primary focus for investigators. While law enforcement worked to track his location, they initially withheld his name from public release. Authorities cited the importance of securing an arrest before providing more information, but this decision generated frustration within the family and among community members who feared that the suspect remained free. As days passed, pressure grew on law enforcement to make an arrest. Family members spoke with local media, expressing their concerns about safety and the urgent need for justice. Friends joined in voicing frustration that the person widely believed to be responsible had not yet been apprehended. This public attention increased scrutiny on the case and pushed the search of the suspect into the spotlight. The investigation came to a turning point 1 week after the murder. On October 18 to 19, 2023, officers located and arrested Justin Rene Lewis in Forest Park, Georgia. He was taken into custody without incident and transferred to the DeKalb County Jail. Upon booking, he was formally charged with malice murder, the most serious homicide charge under Georgia law. The court determined that Lewis would be held without bond, meaning he would remain in custody pending trial. The arrest ended the immediate search. But for Raesha's family, it was only the beginning of the legal process. In the aftermath of the arrest, Raesha's relatives spoke publicly about their loss and the developments in the case. They describe her as a loving mother and daughter whose life had been taken in a violent act. Her sister, Rhonda Heard, made a statement to local media explaining that the arrest had finally brought the family a degree of rest. According to her, it was the first night since the incident that they were able to sleep well. The family also directed attention to the issue of domestic violence. They emphasized that Raesha's death underscored the dangers of staying in relationships marked by abuse or threats. Relatives urged others in similar situations to seek help and remove themselves from potentially dangerous environments before conflicts escalated. This became one of the central messages that the family wanted the public to take from the tragedy. Raesha was laid to rest only days after the shooting. Funeral services drew a large turnout from both relatives and community members. The size of the gathering reflected the extent of grief and shock surrounding the case. While the ceremony marked closure in terms of burial, it left behind the ongoing questions of how her children would cope with the sudden loss of their mother. Particular concern focused on the son, who had been present at the time of the killing. Witnessing such a violent act at close range carried long-term consequences for his emotional and psychological well-being. Family members acknowledged the difficulty he would face in processing what he had seen. More broadly, the family also expressed worry for both of Raesha's surviving children, as they would now grow up without their mother's guidance and presence. The murder of Raesha Heard generated a strong response from the local community. The crime had occurred in a residential neighborhood, in broad daylight, and in front of a child, which heightened public alarm. Many described the incident as shocking because of its brazenness. Vigils were organized to honor her memory, and memorials were set up at the location of her death. These events gave neighbors and supporters a chance to come together, reflect, and demand justice. Social media played an unusual role in the case. After the shooting, the suspect appeared online, posting messages and live streams that were interpreted as taunts directed at the victim's family. These posts sparked outrage and anger among relatives and community members, who saw them as evidence of both callousness and intimidation. The online activity raised broader concerns about how suspects or abusers might use digital platforms to extend harm or exert psychological control even after crime. As the case drew more public attention, advocates for domestic violence awareness stepped forward. Local organizations used Raesha's story as a cautionary example of how quickly situations involving intimate partner conflict can escalate to lethal violence. They emphasized the importance of early intervention, protective measures, and stronger community support systems. This perspective gained traction as the facts of the case circulated widely through both news coverage and social media discussions. The killing of Raesha Heard cannot be examined in isolation. It is part of a recurring pattern of violence that weighed heavily on her family and reflected larger concerns across DeKalb County. In the span of just 14 months, the Heard family suffered 2 homicides. In July 2022, 15-year-old Romello Heard was fatally shot during an armed robbery. Just over a year later, his aunt, Raesha Heard, was killed in front of her child. For one family, the back-to-back losses illustrated how cycles of violence can devastate households, leaving survivors not only with grief but with repeated exposure to traumatic loss. This dual tragedy underscores the broader impact of gun violence in DeKalb County. The county, like many other urban centers in Georgia, has faced ongoing challenges with firearm-related crime. The circumstances of Raesha's killing, a shooting carried out in a residential driveway, in view of family members, demonstrated how such violence often erupts in familiar spaces, not isolated to unfamiliar or remote locations. It also highlighted how domestic disputes, when left unchecked, can escalate into fatal outcomes, adding to local homicide statistics and placing additional strain on community resources. Another dimension that situates this case in the broader national conversation is the intersection of domestic violence and pregnancy. Reports indicated that Raesha may have been 2 months pregnant at the time of her death. Data from multiple studies and national health agencies consistently identify homicide as one of the leading causes of death for pregnant women in the United States. This pattern often emerges from intimate partner violence. The Heard case added another data point to this alarming trend, demonstrating how vulnerable pregnant women can be to acts of lethal violence from partners or former partners. The fact that Raesha was targeted by someone with whom she had a history of relationship issues strengthens this connection and situates her story within the wider crisis of maternal safety in the context of domestic violence. The case of Raesha Heard therefore extends beyond one victim, one suspect, and one family. It reflects broader issues of community safety, the prevalence of gun violence, the compounded risks for women in abusive relationships, and the heightened vulnerability of expectant mothers. Each of these elements places her death within a framework of ongoing public concern, where her story functions as both a personal tragedy and a societal alarm. Following the investigation and suspect identification, legal action against the accused, Justin Renee Lewis, proceeded under the laws of Georgia. The charge leveled against him was malice murder, a classification used in Georgia for killings that are intentional and carried out with deliberate intent. The seriousness of this charge indicates that authorities believe the evidence pointed not toward an accidental or reckless act, but toward premeditated or intentional killing. Once taken into custody, Lewis was booked into the DeKalb County Jail. He was denied bond, which meant that he would remain in detention while awaiting further court proceedings. The denial of bond in such cases typically reflects the severity of the charge, the potential risk posed to the community, and the likelihood of the defendant attempting to evade prosecution. As of the most recent updates, there have been no significant trial developments or reported hearings moving the case toward resolution. The legal process is expected to focus on several key areas: establishing motive, presenting forensic evidence related to the shooting, and including testimony from witnesses. One of the most significant witnesses is the victim's young son, who was present at the time of the killing. However, the involvement of such a young witness presents legal and ethical challenges that the court must carefully manage. The proceedings are likely to involve a close examination of digital evidence as well. Reports surface that Lewis used social media platforms in the aftermath of the incident, allegedly to post content that could be interpreted as taunting the victim's family. Whether these digital actions will be admissible as evidence or used to demonstrate state of mind remains a matter for the court to decide. Nonetheless, they contribute to the evidentiary framework that prosecutors may attempt to build in pursuit of a conviction. At this stage, the legal process remains in its early phases, with many procedural steps still pending. Until trial proceedings formally begin and evidence is presented in court, the case remains open-ended, awaiting judicial examination and resolution. Although the suspect has been arrested and charged, several critical questions remain unresolved. These questions contribute to the ongoing sense of uncertainty surrounding the case. What specifically triggered the attack that night? The precise circumstances leading to the shooting remain unclear. Whether the suspect followed Raesha to her parents' home or whether there was an altercation prior to the gunfire has not been definitively reported. How long had the suspect been planning the assault? The level of intent, whether the act was premeditated or the result of a spontaneous decision, has not been clarified. This distinction will likely be central to legal arguments in court. Could the tragedy have been prevented with earlier intervention? Family and friends indicated that the relationship between Raesha and the suspect had been troubled, with potential indications of domestic violence. Whether there were prior reports, protective measures, or warning signs that might have led to intervention remains unanswered. What role, if any, did social media evidence play in the investigation? The suspect's use of social media in the aftermath of the killing raised questions about his state of mind and his awareness of the crime. The extent to which investigators used digital platforms to track his movements or secure evidence has not been made public. These unresolved elements not only leave gaps in the public understanding of the case, but also reflect the broader challenges investigators and courts face in establishing motive, intent, and accountability in cases of intimate partner violence. The murder of Raesha Heard illustrates the multiple layers of impact caused by domestic violence and gun crime. Her death left 2 children without their mother, and if reports are accurate, it also ended the life of an unborn child. For her family, the loss came on the heels of another fatal shooting, intensifying the cycle of trauma they have endured. For her community, the killing in a residential driveway reflected the wider reach of gun violence, which does not remain confined to public disputes or criminal activity, but frequently intrudes into private lives and family spaces. At the national level, her death reinforced statistical realities about the risks faced by pregnant women and the prevalence of homicide as a cause of maternal mortality. These issues extend beyond one county and connect to a systemic problem across the United States, where intimate partner violence continues to claim lives despite ongoing awareness efforts. The legal process remains ongoing. With the suspect detained and charged, the case now depends on judicial review of evidence, witness testimony, and the presentation of motive. Until a verdict is reached, questions linger and justice remains incomplete. For now, Raesha Heard's story stands as a cautionary account of how domestic issues can escalate into public tragedies and how violence, when unaddressed, continues to ripple outward, leaving communities, families, and children bearing the consequences. If you found this story as gripping and heartbreaking as we did, don't forget to like this video and share it with others. And if you want to hear more true crime stories that uncover the mysteries behind these tragic events, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. You won't want to miss our latest stories, updates, and discussions. Thank you for joining us on this journey to seek justice and explore the truth. Together, we can make a difference. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware. On August 11th, 2024, during the evening hours, multiple gunshots were reported in a residential area of Peoria, Illinois. Calls to 911 indicated an argument had taken place immediately before the shots were fired. Police arrived at the home of 35-year-old Zaneta Shar'dé Winters and located two individuals with gunshot wounds. Winters was pronounced deceased at the scene. The second victim, identified as 20-year-old neighbor Jakaiden Rynearson, was transported to a local hospital and later died. The scene was secured and evidence collection began. Investigators recovered a handgun, multiple shell casings, and other physical evidence. Witnesses stated they saw 39-year-old Stevie A. Linwood Jr., known to Winters, leaving the area shortly after shooting. Detectives obtained surveillance footage, phone records, and digital communications. These materials, combined with witness statements, identified Linwood as the primary suspect. Stevie A. Linwood Jr. was located and taken into custody without reported resistance.
You just found him in my yard. That I was trying.
Hands up! I'm gonna take you. Left chest. Hands up! Lay on the ground for me. Lay on the ground for me. Put your hands up! Peoria Police Department!
I don't know.
Put your hands up! Last chance I'm gonna take you, dude. You're gonna lay on the ground. Now. Put your hands up! This can go peacefully. Come on, just work with you.
Oh my God.
Just work. Put your hands up. Mr. Linwood, stand up. Hands up. You can go peacefully. You do not have to do this. Just stand up. Let's go peacefully. Put them behind your head. Put them up.
Shut up. Oh shit. Shit. Oh my God, they tased his ass.
Behind the back. Behind the back. Behind the back. Get it. Lock it up.
Different shit.
Lock it up. Get the chair. Get the chair. Sit down. Get up here. On his face. On his face. Got both feet. Good.
That's a neighbor man from across the yard. I'm trying to see his face. That's nice.
Cada vez que vamos a poner
It's so many cars in there forward. Oh, in the front too.
Hey, I'm gonna have this whole area secured until we figure out. Yep. That's mine, Sergeant. That's mine.
On November 26, 2024, a Peoria County grand jury indicted Linwood on 2 counts of first-degree murder for the deaths of Zaneta Winters and Jakaiden Rynearson.
Less than 2 weeks ago, Zaneta Winters was shot and killed by her boyfriend, Stevie Linwood, in Peoria.
The case is pending trial. The prosecution has indicated it will present evidence of prior incidents between Winters and Linwood, along with the sequence of events leading to the shootings. The defense is expected to challenge the credibility of witnesses and the interpretation of digital evidence. Stay with us as we unravel the shocking story and uncover the heartbreaking details of what led to this senseless loss. Before we begin, let us know in the comments, where are you watching from? And what are your thoughts as the story unfolds? Welcome to True Crime Tales, where we reveal the crimes that shock communities and the secrets hidden behind closed doors. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let's begin. Zaneta Shar'dé Winters was born on October 2nd, 1988, in Peoria, Illinois. She was 35 years old at the time of her death. At the time of the events leading to her death, she was living in Peoria in a residential area. Her occupation was as a certified nursing assistant, CNA, in a local nursing home. Her position required her to assist patients with daily needs such as bathing, feeding, and mobility, as well as updating medical charts, taking vital signs, and providing basic support to residents under her care. Co-workers consistently describe her work as reliable and attentive, with attention to patient comfort and adherence to healthcare procedures. Winters was raised in Peoria in a close family household. She attended local schools from elementary through high school. After graduating, she pursued healthcare training and successfully earned her CNA certification. According to public records and accounts from those who knew her, her interest in the medical field began early, likely influenced by family values and experiences within the community. She remained a lifelong resident of the Peoria area. She maintained active contact with her immediate and extended family. Her mother later became a public advocate for domestic abuse awareness after her daughter's death. Winters had at least one child. Information about the child's identity and age has been withheld from public reporting. She was known to have close relationships with siblings and extended relatives who frequently participated in community gatherings. She was also socially connected to neighbors and friends, maintaining consistent interaction both in person and through digital communication. Winters kept steady employment and balanced her work schedule with parenting and household responsibilities. She was regarded as approachable and dependable by those in her personal and professional life. She maintained a lifestyle centered around family stability, steady income, and community involvement. The individual later identified as a primary suspect in this case is Stevie A. Linwood Jr. records and witness statements indicate that Winters and Linwood had been in a relationship for approximately 10 years. The relationship was visible in their community and on social media, but was also described as troubled by those familiar with them. Family members later reported that the relationship was marked by a recurring pattern of controlling behavior, verbal altercations, and incidents suggestive of physical conflict. Accounts from people close to Winters reference arguments over her personal independence, contact with others, and decisions about her household. Allegations included jealousy and possessiveness from Linwood toward Winters. There were suggestions of financial interdependence and emotional entanglement, which may have made separating from the relationship more difficult. According to family statements, Winters made several attempts to end the relationship over the years. Each separation was followed by a reconciliation, with the reasons for returning to the relationship not made public. Despite the reported history of disputes, there was no formal record of a restraining order, police intervention, or court action relating to domestic incidents between them at the time of her death. Neighbors reported having overheard arguments from the residents on multiple occasions over the years. Some friends had expressed concern for Winters' safety and well-being, though these concerns were not formally reported to authorities. Individuals familiar with the couple noted that the disputes were intermittent, with periods of apparent calm between episodes of conflict. In the period leading up to August 11, 2024, multiple sources close to Winters suggested that arguments between her and Linwood had increased in both frequency and intensity. Reports indicate that Linwood suspected Winters was attempting to distance herself from the relationship or was preparing to bring it to a permanent end. These suspicions reportedly led to further disputes. In the days immediately preceding August 11th, there were unverified reports that Linwood had been seen in the vicinity of Winters' residence at times when he did not have a clear reason to be there. These sightings fueled speculation among neighbors and acquaintances that he might have been monitoring her activities. No official complaints or police reports were filed in connection to these sightings, and their accuracy remains unconfirmed. On August 11, 2024, Winters' known activities during the day followed her typical schedule. There was no recorded indication that she expected any immediate danger or disruption. That evening, her neighbor, 20-year-old Jakaiden Rynearson, was present near or at her residence. The reason for his presence has not been publicly detailed. Accounts from neighbors suggest that there were normal levels of movement and activity in the area prior to an argument being overheard later that evening. On the evening of August 11, 2024, in Peoria, Illinois, activity in a residential neighborhood was interrupted by a sudden and violent disturbance. The sequence began with several residents in the vicinity of Zaneta Winters' home reporting the sound of raised voices. The source was identified as coming from within her residence. The exchange was loud enough to be heard through open windows and across neighboring yards. According to multiple accounts, the verbal exchange lasted only a brief period before it was replaced by a series of gunshots. Witnesses described the shots as coming in rapid succession, with minimal pause between them, suggesting multiple rounds were fired in quick order. Some neighbors reported hearing the sound of movement or struggle immediately preceding the gunfire. Inside the residence, 35-year-old Zaneta Winters was struck multiple times. Her injuries were located in vital areas, making survival unlikely without immediate and advanced medical intervention. Also present during or immediately after the shooting was 20-year-old neighbor Jakaiden Rynearson. Based on early investigation, his presence had been the result of an attempt to intervene after hearing the commotion or due to being a bystander caught in the incident. He was also struck by gunfire. The number of wounds and their placement indicated close proximity to the shooter during the incident. Within moments of shots being fired, multiple 911 calls were placed by neighbors. The first officers arrived within minutes. Upon entry into the residence, law enforcement located both victims. Zaneta Winters was found unresponsive and was pronounced deceased at the scene. Jakaiden Rynearson was found alive, but in critical condition. Emergency medical services immediately transported him to a nearby hospital. Despite efforts by medical staff, he succumbed to his injuries later that night. The area surrounding the residence was secured with police tape. Officers began an immediate canvassing of nearby houses for witnesses and any available surveillance footage from private security cameras or doorbell systems. The crime scene unit arrived shortly after the initial law enforcement response. Technicians conducted a systematic sweep of the property, beginning with photographing the scene from multiple angles before any physical evidence was disturbed. A handgun was located within the residence. It was secured and tagged as evidence. Spent shell casings were found in the same area as the victims, consistent with shooting that occurred indoors at close range. The number of casings was recorded, and their positions mapped to reconstruct the possible movement of the shooter. Bullet impact marks on walls and objects were examined to determine firing angles. Trajectory analysis indicated that the shooter was positioned in close proximity to the victims, facing them during the firing sequence. All recovered casings and projectiles were sent to the State Forensic Laboratory for analysis. Results confirmed that the casings matched the recovered handgun. The firearm was processed for fingerprints and other trace evidence, though the condition in which it was found suggested deliberate handling by someone familiar with its operation. The serial number on the weapon was intact, and, through tracing, linked directly to the suspect in the case. This connection provided a direct evidentiary link between the weapon and the individual later charged with the shootings. Officers conducted interviews with residents in the immediate area. Several confirmed hearing a verbal argument originating from within Zaneta's home. One neighbor provided a clear account of seeing a person leave the residence shortly after the gunfire stopped. The description given matched the known appearance of the suspect. Other witnesses reported seeing a vehicle parked near the home before the shooting and leaving at high speed afterward. Details about the vehicle's make, model, and color were collected and cross-referenced with known associations of the suspect. Investigators sought and obtained warrants for the victims and suspect's phone records. Call logs revealed recent communication between the two, including on the day of the incident. Text messages recovered from both devices indicated tensions and potential conflict in the hours leading up to the shooting. In addition to phone data, social media activity was reviewed. Posts and direct messages were analyzed for any indications of threats, disputes, or planning. The review uncovered potentially incriminating statements made by the suspect in private messages, which investigators later referenced in legal filings. The suspect, identified as Stevie Linwood Jr., was located shortly after the incident. Information from witnesses and preliminary investigative findings placed him in a nearby location within hours of the shooting. Law enforcement officers apprehended him without reported resistance. He was transported to the Peoria County Jail for processing. Following consultation with the Peoria County State's Attorney's Office, Linwood was formally charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, one for the death of Zaneta Winters and one for the death of Jakaiden Rynearson. Additional firearm-related charges were considered, including unlawful use of a weapon and possible possession violations, depending on the suspect's prior legal history. Given the severity of the charges and the circumstances of the incident, the court determined the suspect will be held without bail pending trial. The decision was based on the violent nature of the alleged crime, the potential threat to public safety, and the risk of flight. The case proceeded into the pretrial phase, where the prosecution began compiling witness testimony, forensic reports, and digital communications into its evidence portfolio. Defense counsel was granted access to discovery materials and began reviewing possible strategies, which could include challenging the credibility of witness statements or the interpretation of forensic data. In the days following the deaths of Zaneta Shar'dé Winters and Jakaiden Rynearson, the Peoria community responded in visible and organized ways. Family members made public statements to local media outlets, outlining their understanding of events and addressing the broader circumstances surrounding the case. Zaneta's mother, speaking during an interview, addressed the ongoing challenges victims face in leaving abusive relationships. She described the difficulty of separating from a long-term partner when there are shared financial obligations, emotional bonds, or fear of retaliation. She noted that warning signs of danger may not always be recognized or acted upon by those outside the relationship. Her statements emphasized that the decision to leave can be a complex and extended process, not always resolved by a single action. Friends of the victims used social media to share photographs, personal stories, and messages of remembrance. These posts served as a digital memorial space where acquaintances and community members could express their condolences and reflect on their interactions with the victims. Community members also organized candlelight vigils in honor of both Zaneta and Jakaiden. These gatherings took place at local parks near the site of the incident, drawing attendance from relatives, friends, and residents who may not have personally known the victims but wish to show support. In addition, fundraising efforts were launched to assist with funeral expenses and other family needs. These campaigns, conducted both online and through local events, aimed to provide immediate financial relief for the affected families. On November 26, 2024, a Peoria County grand jury indicted the suspect, Stevie Linwood Jr., on 2 counts of first-degree murder. The indictment marked the formal beginning of court proceedings in the case. During the pretrial phase, the court scheduled multiple hearings to address procedural matters, including the admissibility of evidence. These hearings examined the chain of custody for physical evidence such as a firearm and shell casings, as well as the validity of witness testimony and digital records. The court also considered any motions filed by the defense to suppress certain materials. The prosecution strategy, as indicated by early filings and public statements, centered on presenting evidence of a history of abusive behavior between the suspect and Zaneta Winters. Prosecutors plan to argue that the events of August 11, 2024 demonstrated intent and premeditation, supported by witness accounts and forensic findings. The defense was expected to challenge the prosecution's narrative by scrutinizing the reliability of witnesses, questioning the interpretation of digital communications, and potentially introducing alternative scenarios for the shooting. While the defense had not publicly disclosed its full strategy, court documents suggested they would seek to undermine the prosecution's case on ground of evidentiary insufficiency or possible provocation. Trial dates had not been confirmed at the time of the last update, but both sides were actively preparing for a contested legal process. The case has drawn attention to several social and legal issues beyond the immediate facts of the incident. The circumstances described by the victim's family illustrate the risks faced by individuals in abusive relationships. Advocates note that without formal protective measures, such as restraining orders, victims may remain vulnerable to continued harassment or violence. The case demonstrates how personal, financial, and psychological barriers can delay or prevent a victim from leaving an unsafe relationship. The death of neighbor Jakaiden Rynearson has raised questions about the safety of individuals who intervene or happen to be near domestic violence incidents. Community safety advocates have discussed the need for bystander awareness programs, noting that those not directly involved in a dispute can still become victims if violence escalates. The case has prompted discussions on potential gaps in intervention systems. These include the availability of resources for those experiencing abuse, the speed of law enforcement response to domestic disputes, and the coordination between social services and the criminal justice system. Some advocates argue that earlier detection of high-risk situations could help prevent violence before it occurs. As of the latest information, there has been no verdict in the case. The suspect, Stevie A. Linwood Jr., remains in custody pending trial. Given the severity of the charges, 2 counts of first-degree murder, conviction could result in a sentence of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole under Illinois law. The families of the victims continue to engage in public advocacy, participating in events that raise awareness about domestic violence and support services. These efforts include speaking engagements, participation in community safety panels, and collaboration with local nonprofit organizations. Community groups have also renewed calls for reforms in domestic abuse intervention, emphasizing the need for early identification of high-risk relationships and the implementation of more robust safety planning for victims. The ongoing public dialogue surrounding the case reflects both the specific details of the incident and the broader societal challenge of preventing similar tragedies in the future. The trial, once it begins, is expected to examine not only the forensic evidence from the crime scene, but also the long-term dynamics between the suspect and the primary victim. Testimony from witnesses, expert analysts, and law enforcement officers will likely provide a more complete timeline of events leading up to the night of August 11, 2024. Until the court reaches a conclusion, the case remains a focal point in Peoria's public discourse, representing a combination of personal tragedy, legal complexity, and community response. If you found this story as gripping and heartbreaking as we did, don't forget to like this video and share it with others. And if you want to hear more true crime stories that uncover the mysteries behind these tragic events, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. You won't want to miss our latest stories, updates, and discussions. Thank you for joining us on this journey to seek justice and explore the truth. Together, we can make a difference. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware.